Greetings, everybody. It's me again, Marcel Williams, and giving you my take on things. It's a beautiful day today, and there's such a lot to be thankful for. But let me express my appreciation for all the encouraging messages and things that have come from those who have watched the posts. And thank you once again. You'll remember the last time I was talking about the end times. We ended off with the end times. And how we got there, we first talked about earthquakes, and then we looked at the book of Matthew in the Bible, where Jesus Christ talked about earthquakes. And the point that I made at the previous time was that it's the frequency of these things that are happening, and not just the fact that it's happening. It's the frequency that's talking about birth pains, and that brings us closer to the end times. So today I'm going to continue with that, and you'll notice that in Matthew 24, the context is that the disciples were with Jesus Christ at the temple in Jerusalem, and it was a very beautiful, wonderful temple that even nations from the other lands came regularly to come and visit and pay homage. And they were very full of wonder, and they bragged in front of the Lord Jesus Christ about this wonderful temple. But he made a strange statement. He said that no stone will be left on another. It will be totally destroyed, and the temple as well as Jerusalem. And that was a prophetic statement, because in the year AD 70, the Roman general Titus utterly destroyed the city and the temple, as Jesus Christ prophesied. And naturally, just like anybody else, they were very puzzled and curious, so they privately went to him and asked him, two questions. And the two questions go like this, when will this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? And Jesus Christ gave an answer that's very prophetic. That's the time when he started talking about the earthquakes, the famines, and the pestilences that we've been talking about. But listed there is also nations against nations, wars and rumors of wars, and peoples against peoples. And as we know in our time, and those of us who know history, that there's been wars and rumors of wars for several decades. And we just think of the First and the Second World War. The First World War in 1914 to 1918, and the Second World War 1939 to 1945, where millions of people were killed and nations were involved, not only just one nation or so. And it's interesting that Jesus Christ broke it up like this, because in his time there was no such thing as nation states. Nation states came into being more in the 1800s, 1870s onwards, with the unification of Germany and Italy. And as we know today, there are nation states, but previously there were kingdoms and principalities. So there already is the prophecy that the Lord actually saw nation against nation. And then also he broke it up into peoples against peoples. Now, if you think of it, many of the countries have peoples within their borders. It's not only one kind of ethnic group. So we've got this issue of ethnic groups actually in conflict with each other. And I'm just thinking back now of the Rwanda situation, not so a few decades ago, where the Tutsis and the Hutus were in some form of conflict, and the words came up of genocide and ethnic cleansing. And a form of ethnic cleansing and genocide took place also in Europe. And we think further of countries like India and Pakistan, where it's ethnic and religious differences that bring peoples against peoples. The Israelis and the Palestinians in the Middle East, and very presently we've got even there's a conflict that's going on between the Armenians and the Azerbaijan people. So that's very prophetic. But the key thing here is the frequency of it. There were always wars and always conflicts between peoples, but as we're going further into the century from the previous one, the wars and rumors of wars, the nations against the nations and peoples against peoples, the earthquakes, it's the frequency that Jesus Christ pointed out. It's the beginning of birth pains. Now, I explained the last time about the birth pains, the analogy of how frequent the contractions will come towards the real birth of the baby. And in a similar way, these things will continue and become frequent, and gaps between them will become less and less as we enter the end times. So the end times is a term that we gain from the Bible, the time of the end, or we loosely now call it the end times. Now, Jesus Christ said something interesting there also, that the end will not come. All these things must happen, but the end only comes when this gospel will be preached to all the nations as a testimony, and then the end will come. So these signs that we see around us is not the end, but it's signs of the end coming. So just be aware of that. Then a very important part I would like to just conclude with is the issue of deception. When Jesus Christ answered those two questions, he began with a warning. He said, for instance, that be careful that nobody deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming to be him, and will deceive many. The key words in the Bible to take notice: and will deceive many. And don't you think it's happening today that there's been several examples of people claiming to be the Lord Jesus Christ and deceived many? And it's happened way back, in Jim Jones. I don't know if you heard, know the story of Jim Jones and the jungle in South America, where 900 of his followers committed suicide. And then there was David Koresh in the United States of America, where his compound was burnt down to the ground in a conflict with the authorities. And he also made some very strong claims about himself. So even now with television evangelism, we need to be careful that that medium has been used by the wrong kind of people also. So I won't say that it's all wrong, but we need to be careful and listen to what the people are propagating and what they're teaching. So you find this in Matthew 24 verse 4 about the deception. So the next time I talk, I'd like to actually unpack more about this issue of deception, because it's so important. If the Lord Jesus Christ said it to us, then we need to take note. Until next time, be safe, be well, be blessed.